Welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast, everyone. My name is Elijah. We are here the evening of August 27th. Unfortunately, the Orioles managed to lose another baseball game we just do this in the most infuriating ways, in the most like I don't know. I will stop trying to pontificate, and I would just say, like, Tony Mansolino left Keegan Aiken in for a second inning. This was Keegan Aiken's third game pitching in 4 days. He goes in, has a great inning, gets us out of a jam in the eighth. But there's just no world where you go ahead and you leave him in for the ninth inning. Again, pitched 3 out of the last 4 days. You had already seen him, like, leaving pitches up in the zone. You had seen a number of dangerous pitches crossing the plate. And he comes out, grooves three fastballs to Jarren Duran. Uh, the third one is a leadoff single. And then you continue to leave him in there, have nobody warming up even, and Cedar Rafaela hits a go-ahead two-run home run. It's just like, that there's so much base level information out there that relievers are worse after they go sit down for a half inning and then stand back up and continue to go. And again, this was a guy pitching in his third game out of 4 days, and we only threw three relievers yesterday, including Keegan Aiken. Again, threw yesterday. Um, so your entire bullpen is rested. I really, like, for the life of me, cannot fathom what would drive you to not go to a Rico Garcia. You have options in this situation, and just totally ignored all of them. Left Aiken in there. He's just, like, grooving changeups at the top of the zone. Like, it's unfathomable how that decision was reached in Mansolino's head. I am excited to see who the new manager will be start of 2026. That's all I got about that. But we're here with some good news, because I'm going to talk about what happened on August 26th. For those of you keeping score at home, that was yesterday for me. You're probably going to be listening on the 28th, so it'll be 2 days ago. And if you've been keeping track in your little notebook, that is the day that Kyle Bradish made his return to the Baltimore Orioles. Uh, you know, Obviously had Tommy John surgery, um, or some variant. I'm not remembering which right now. Might have been some hybrid, if I remember correctly, but some form of ulnar collateral ligament reconstruction. Um, Obviously has been a long day or long time off for him. You feel for anybody going through that. We were all so happy to see Felix come back. We're going to get to celebrate again when Tyler Wells takes the mound in a week or two here. But Bradish means something slightly different to this team, right? We have talked about the struggles that the rotation had, obviously been better in the second half here, but Kyle Bradish won won fourth place. Kyle Bradish was fourth place in Cy Young voting in 2023 in the American League. He has top of the line stuff. He obviously had the platelet rich plasma injection at the beginning of last season, and we said, okay, maybe he could come back. He came back touching 99 miles an hour against Bryce Harper, if anyone remembers that. And the stuff looked just as good, and you got this extra taste of him, and it was like, oh my God, he's here. And then he went down. So we are now, getting the return of this guy who has frontline stuff that the Orioles have so badly needed, in the vacuum that Corbin Burns left. So this is exciting. This is, I mean, obviously, like, the priority this year is just make sure that Bradish stays healthy through the rest of the season. That's literally the only thing that matters. Um, but at the same time, we get to, Mansolino said it in his post-game comments, that's just like, that's a different caliber of stuff. That is just different than anything we have in the rotation right now. So it's exciting. It just is. This is not Tomoyuki Sugano going out there. This is just two wipeout breaking balls and a pair of fastballs that are just dominant. So, the couple things I wanted to note here, um, I just wanted to kind of go through his outing, go through some observations. I'm going to start off and give a hat tip to Lance Brosdowski. You may have heard him if you are a multi-Orioles podcast listener. You may have heard him over on The Verge. He came on, talked about some of the Orioles prospects. Um, Lance is a guy who works for the Marquee Sports Network, the Chicago Cubs uh, regional sports network. He is I'm forgetting his title over there, but he kind of analyzes. Um, he's kind of the analyst for them. I guess that's the thing to say. Usually on the pregame show and such. But on the side, he goes ahead. He runs a YouTube channel. I've alluded to it before on our channel. He posts videos that break down a lot of incredibly difficult concepts in very, very user friendly for kind of all levels of intimacy with the modern analytics in today's game. Um, he breaks them down extremely well. I think he is very thorough, presents extremely cleanly. And on the side, he also runs a Substack. You can do this this free version, which includes what I'm about to show. But uh, he goes and just types up notes on all sorts of pitchers every single day. It's really, really phenomenal stuff. It's quick stuff. It's nothing that will take an hour to read. I wake up every single day and I read this stuff. Every day that he posts, I'm on. So sure enough, Bradish returned. It's a big thing in the world of pitching. Lance goes ahead and a writes up a little blurb about it. The couple things that he noted primarily, I think the one of the interesting things was he kind of pushed his release height up. Um, it's 2/10 of an inch, which is probably 3 inches or so. But um, Bradish is releasing the ball just a little bit higher than he did previously. Um, Lance noted that this added 2 inches of vertical break to his four seam. That thing is really hopping at the top of the zone. We'll talk about the locations a little bit later. Um, but yeah, he says he's got this slightly more vertical slot. A lot of times there are kind of mechanical changes. Um, but he says, given that his breaking balls maintain their previous levels of depth from that towering release height, um, things could turn out pretty well. It says it could just be that he's more unique and the stuff remains just as good. So, I read that and then I knew I was going to do this podcast, so I went in and took some closer looks. I was intrigued by the mention of this slightly higher release this year. Uh, Lance did note that this was common across his outings in the minor leagues as well, so this is not just kind of a one start. He was uncomfortable pushing off the mound or something like that, with the Camden Yards mound. It's nothing unique to this start. Um, but I have plotted in front of me for those of you on YouTube. This is the average release height um, for each pitch by season. So you can see over the course of this year, as Lance noted, you do have a distinct increase in the release height on all four pitches. Um, I don't think I have too much more to say about that, but I did go ahead and just look at some video and I was curious and I tried to, again, for those of you on YouTube, tried to pause these clips at about the same time. For those of you on podcast form, it's basically, the moment when he has strided out, his foot has made contact, his torso is rotating, but the arm is still behind him. Um, and I think the thing that I noticed is there's just, I matched up camera angles, both from Camden Yards. Um, and I think the stride might be a little bit shorter. And I think he might also just be coming across his body a tiny bit less. There's a little bit less torso action pulling down to the first base side. And sometimes when you are stepping across yourself, that's how you get. I've got Nick Lodolo pitching against the Dodgers up on my screen. He steps very far across himself, and as a result, the arm has to kind of whip around sideways. You create a little more angular velocity kind of coming around your body to get that release point back out front. That also kind of goes with what Lance noted about a slight drop in extension too. Um, So, I think that potentially Bradish is coming across, like he's throwing a little bit less crossfire and staying a little bit more linear to the plate. Um, but all in all, yeah, like Lance noted, it didn't make too much of a difference. We did see a very, very slight drop in velocity in this first game. I will bring up, just like the spread of velocities that he hit. I mean, he did touch 97.8 miles an hour, so the top end velocity is very much there at an extremely healthy level. Bradish throwing 98 miles an hour, that's going to play. Um, some people did note anecdotally, I unfortunately was working during the second half of the game, but people did note anecdotally that he did seem to be losing a couple miles an hour. This is not a situation where Bradish has, thrown 100 pitches for 6 or 7 starts and then is coming up to the major leagues. He was building up every single start, throwing more pitches every start. He got to 75, 80, and then he was in the bigs. So, just want to stress that some amount of conditioning could be a factor here. Um, Also, anecdotally, it did look, maybe like the belly was just a tiny bit bigger. He had a year off. Conditioning might be a factor. No, he's an elite athlete, and I am not one to judge. Um, but so just noting, yeah, like stamina lasting into the game, and the other note about stamina is obviously this is his first time back on the mound in over a year on a big league field. He is going to be pumped up. It's against a division rival. He's going to go out there and be gassing it up. Um, and it makes sense to tire toward the end of the game for any number of reasons, particularly in this first start. So, I think the average velocities might be taken with a grain of salt. But that said, they were down a little bit across the board, a very little bit. I'll just note the sinker this year, or I should say, the sinker last year was averaging 95.3. It was about a half mile an hour slower in this first start. Four seam was at 94.5, uh, right about the same in the first start, 94.3. I think the things that are more noteworthy, like those for the fastball velocities are virtually the same, but the the slider is coming in about a mile and a half slower than it did last year, and the curveball is coming in about a mile an hour slower. It was 88.2 last year on the slider, 86.9 in the first start, 84.1 last year on the curveball, 83.2 this year. I think, that's worth mentioning just because the average right-handed pitcher's slider nowadays, this is kind of ridiculous to say, but is 86 and a half miles an hour. So while Bradish is clearly, he's throwing this uber sweepy version of a slider that is an absolute hammer, and he is managing to like get a full foot of sweep on the thing while he is killing vert. I mean, it's still an incredible pitch, but that's to say it's not also carrying with it the elite velocity that it did last year. In 2024, we'll see, once again, just about 12 inches of break, also right about the 0 inches of vert line, and he was throwing it at 82, or I'm sorry, 88.2. So that extra mile and a half, mile and a half on that slider can be really, really significant. I think that can, help it play up just that much more. I think that, this is a bit like arguing over Felix Bautista throwing his sinker at 103 miles an hour versus the, 97 miles an hour that he was throwing this year. It is still like Bradish's slider, I'm sorry, is still a really phenomenal pitch. It is still dominant. It is still like it is everything we want it to be, but at the same time, it is just a tiny bit more human in this sense. So once again, this could certainly be something about the first start out here, and I do not think like I'm not looking at this in any way changing my outlook on him going into next year or something like that. There's a very good chance he builds up all of this velocity, uh, throughout a nice healthy off season. It's fine. Don't let what I'm saying stress you out in any way, shape, or form. Um, But yeah, kind of the interesting thing, that curveball did also go ahead and drop 1 mile an hour. Um, at the 83.2 miles an hour, this is still faster than the major league average curveball by about 2.5 miles an hour. This is still an absolute hammer. And if you were watching it and you saw some of the pitches that he was throwing, or some of these curveballs, um, you know that there really aren't any concerns with this. But once again, uh, it did drop a mile an hour from last year, so it is just a little bit back toward the realm of normal humans. Um, but yeah, I mean, from a velocity standpoint, I think this is really all you can ask for. Once again, we saw the top end velocity. It disappeared off my screen, but 97.8 max on the sinker. That is like that's dominant. He is getting all of the action on the breaking pitches that you could ask for. Um, and I guess to elaborate on that, in terms of movement, jump back over here for the folks on YouTube. In terms of movement, the profile here is very, very much the same. There is, as Lance noted, a tiny bit more hop on the four seam fastball. That's what cued him in on a slightly higher release point and a slightly steeper arm angle with it. But um, yeah, I mean, he's getting almost 16 inches of induced vertical break at 95 miles an hour. That is really, really great. Um, so 2 more inches of hop on that four seam fastball and maintaining the same horizontal break that it had last year. And, in Bradish's case, that's just under 3 inches of cut. Uh, there's this kind of paradigm of four seam fastballs, the cut ride fastball. Folks are kind of cutting that to get separation from the sinker, I think, and to get separation from their arm angles and just create more and more hop. So this is a very, very steeply vertical pitch. It was last year as well. But with that new arm angle, with the higher release point, he's getting just a little bit more hop on that, an extra 2 inches. Um, and I will note that his sinker, it also has 1 inch more hop, 1 inch more vertical break on it. And it's maintaining pretty much the same horizontal movement that it did. So, the fastballs are going to play at the top of the zone. And we saw yesterday, particularly with the sinker, going to play at the bottom of the zone too. I will bring this up here. Uh, the sinker, he was locating all over the zone, peppering it in all over the place. Will note he had one just, man, I forget who was hitting. Maybe Trevor Story. Maybe I can find it real quick. Um, It was Trevor Story. Okay, yeah. So one backdoor just dotted on the like at the knees, outside corner. The folks of you on YouTube can see it for a strike three call. Man, the sinker location was phenomenal. The four seam fastball, I actually also really really enjoyed what he was doing. He was able to keep that up in the zone. There's nothing even below the midway point. He did let a few go high. I do think, that's just a feel thing um, in his first pitch or, first outing back. So not stressed about that in any way, shape, or form, but really pounding the top of the zone with the four seam, letting that vertical break, letting that hot play at the top of the zone, and also really getting it in on lefties as well, throwing to his glove side. Really, really good stuff. The slider, a little bit all over the place. He definitely threw some high. Um, if I remember correctly, both home runs were also hit off of this. So, the slider location was a little bit all over the place, but once again, oftentimes command is the last thing to come back. I thought the curveball command was really, really good, actually. Um, he stayed toward the bottom of the zone with it, was able to pepper arm and glove side, which, as a very vertical pitch, that's probably what you want to be doing with it, moving it around a little bit. So really, really good stuff. I thought he, largely located pretty well. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I think largely, I guess I should back up a little bit and just say he, he allowed these two home runs, but he threw 6 innings. He struck out 10 hitters. He did not walk anyone. I'm having these little tiny gripes about, oh, we let a couple four seams go high. No, the command was good, let a couple sliders go high. No, it's not like that. The command really was good. He really had a phenomenal outing. This is pretty much all you can ask for from a single from a single start, for a guy who has been out of the league for a full year basically. So just a huge, huge boon to spirits, to, uh, outlook for next year to see him come back with the same caliber of stuff. I guess, while I'm talking to you, I'll pull this up and just look at stuff plus numbers from yesterday. But yeah, I mean, to see Bradish come back and have a really, really good day like this, I mean, it instantly changes the outlook of this Orioles team for next year. Um, he really he's got top of the line stuff. He's got this elite ability to get whiffs, to strike hitters out, to induce bad contact. He is just a complete and consummate pitcher. Um, so yeah, just love to see him back. I will say, so we've got some stuff plus numbers for this. It doesn't like his fastball or or sinker, 77 on the fastball, 84 on the sinker, but the breaking stuff is what will be recognized here. 114 on the slider, 107 on the curve. The thing that I will, excuse me, the thing that I will note about about stuff models a little bit, this super hoppy sinker is not something it's going to like, and they tend to not like the cut ride four seam fastballs. I would love to ask Saris about this and ask why his model tends to hate this four seam fastball shape that really does not have any arm side run. Um, but this is something that the Orioles in particular are trying to do. You can look at a guy like Chase McDermott. Um, you can look at, man, I'm trying to think of whoever else. Dean has started going this way a little bit. He doesn't have quite as vertical of an arm slot, but he does, try to get chase that vertical break above all else, and he's kind of maybe sacrificing total movement on it in order to get more oriented vertically and sort of away from that sinker. I think pitchers who do have two fastballs oftentimes will chase this more than anything if their arm slot allows it. This does require something a little bit more vertical on the arm slot. Um, but you want to create separation between your two fastballs so that you can pepper the zone with both of them and make a hitter have to decide on which one they think it is. Um, so yeah, I mean, the breaking ball stuff is phenomenal. The fastball stuff, put some asterisks next to it, but the location plus rating here is a 119. Absolutely loved the locations he was putting up. Um, once again, that four seam was up at the top of the zone. Breaking balls stayed low for the most part. Certainly makes sense. And yeah, just really, really good to see for Bradish. I will also note, I do want to go ahead and pull up just super quickly, um, like his two previous seasons when we thought he was so good. In 2023, his four seam fastball was reading as a 92 on Stuff Plus. The sinker was a 98. And last year, 87 on the four seam fastball, 93 on the sinker. So every year, apparently, his fastballs have gotten worse, but Kyle Bradish has not gotten worse in any way, shape, or form. So there are these little, minutia in like what stuff models recognize as good stuff and what MLB orgs who, are taking a more nuanced approach will chase in terms of shapes. This cut ride shape is certainly a thing that, and not only the Orioles are doing, many teams across the league are chasing this cut ride shape. So it's certainly there's something to it. I think it's about tunneling with breaking balls. I think it's about separation from other fastballs, but the stuff model doesn't really recognize that, but we can see it's very largely in line with what he was doing in previous years for the most part. The fastballs are seeing a little bit less than average, and the slider and curveball are reading nicely above, solidly plus pitches. So good stuff from Bradish. That is all to say. I think we have to be absolutely ecstatic with what we saw here. Once again, striking out 10 people in a lineup like the Red Sox, who are really just, I mean, they're very, very dominant. Uh, this is a good team. This is a team that's tied with the Yankees in wild card position, and they have an up arrow next to their name in a way that the Yankees do not. Roman Anthony, Jaron Duran, as many problems as he has. Alex Bregman is healthy again. This is a good team, and Kyle Bradish, except for two mistake pitches, really shut them down. Be excited and just dream. Just close your eyes with me. Close your eyes. Sit back and dream on a rotation that is headed by Framber Valdez. Do not say anything. Just enjoy the dream. Framber Valdez, Kyle Bradish, and Trevor Rogers. And imagine stepping into the wild card round next year, 2026, and those are the three that you're sending up. I mean, that's electric. It is a possibility no matter how small, and I won't let you tell me anything differently. uh, that's all I got for you. I'm gonna quit it there. This has been the Warehouse Podcast. As always, if you could be so kind, um, you know, like drop a comment on the show, come chat with us, over on Blue Sky at the warehousepod.bsky.social. You can always go ahead and reach out to us at the warehousepod@gmail.com. You can email us. You can catch me over in the On the Verge patrons Discord. Love to chat over there and love that community. And then yeah, you know, come listen to our podcast every once in a while if you can. Leave a comment, subscribe to the show, follow the show, like the show, whatever you can do to support. We always are so grateful. And yeah, we will see you next time. I'll probably talk about the next Kyle Bradish start again, just because I love Kyle Bradish. I do. It's a wonderful man. That's all I got for you. I'll see you next time. It's been the Warehouse Podcast. My name is Elijah. Go O's.